Hello, welcome to the show. I'm here today with Henry Grover. Henry, hello. Thank you for being here, and how are you?
Hi, Sanj. Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me on board. Yeah, nice and sunny in the UK at the minute. So, yeah, life's all good. What about yourself?
Awesome, man. I'm great. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm really jealous about the weather you've got there. Um, a quick little intro to you, Henry. You've had several years in tech recruitment now.
Yep.
I think the last 2 or 3 years you moved from sort of pure IT recruitment into life sciences
Yep.
recruitment, but you're dealing specifically with, I guess, tech roles in life sciences.
Yep.
Today, what we're going to be discussing is all of those things. We're going to be discussing some of your experience in life sciences, the opportunities there, and vitally, how to work with recruiters to get your role, because I know a lot of people are hesitant. So we want to shed a little bit of light.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the uninitiated, what are life sciences? What are we talking about here?
Life science is literally, as they say, anything that involves people's lives and sciences. So that's like a massive range, I guess, from sort of pharmaceutical companies to biotechnology companies to clinical research organizations, academic units, laboratories. I think it covers quite a large sort of range there.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff, right? It's the kind of medical biotech kind of area, right? Those are kind of hot areas right now in life
Yeah,
sciences.
absolutely. Certainly with all the COVID vaccines going on at the minute,
Mm.
it's constantly growing area
Mm.
and exciting one to be in. Not saturated with too many recruiters like the IT market. So I really enjoy it.
Yeah. So, look, was that some of your motivation, or why did you move from sort of pure IT into life sciences?
Good question. So basically, I was actually up in Manchester for Christmas about 3 years ago, and so my boss, I'm very good mates with her brother. So I met her brother for some Christmas drinks, as you do, and I was sort of saying that really enjoying the recruitment. And actually, at the time, I realised that Gail ran a recruitment business and was telling her what I do, and quite open. I was sort of open to a move, although I really was enjoying my current role. And she was like, "Look, I've got this life sciences recruitment company. You should think about coming to work for me." And it has really interested me, life sciences, because my girlfriend works for American pharmaceutical companies, so she's got lots of knowledge. So I'm always asking her questions, and yeah, it just seemed like a good move and a growing market and a bit of an opportunity. So yeah, it's a little bit of a random move, but one that I'm certainly enjoying and. Yeah, I think because going back to that the IT world, you get a new job in, say from a client, and then there'd be like five other recruiters trying to go after the same people, and it was just like a massive scramble and massive fight. So it's nice being in a market that's not as crazy, and you can work more exclusively.
And you said something really interesting. We were catching up just a minute ago, just before we started recording.
Yeah,
And, from what I've been hearing, junior hiring particularly has taken quite a knock with the economies and the
yeah.
pandemic the way it is now. And you're saying it's actually not like that in life sciences. Junior hiring is still pretty strong.
Yeah, I think that for a lot of my clients, life science technology companies, they are definitely looking for junior to certain. If they've got a life science degree, if they've got sort of 2 years commercial experience, so they can sort of come in at a level where they're sort of slightly hitting the ground running, and they're not from that startup. But yeah, so maybe not from a graduate point of view. I've got loads of roles, but certainly people that've got 1 or 2 years industry experience. Yeah, I think there's a
Mm.
massive demand at the minute for that in life sciences. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I've probably got 10 open vacancies, and maybe three of those are only sort of 2-3 years experience required.
Right. That's pretty good. Maybe I should send you my CV. Um, as opposed to like a lot of other tech roles, actually, there's quite a lot of qualifications needed to work in life sciences. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Generally, yeah, I'd say most of our roles, the first thing I'm looking for in a CV is that life science degree, and if they've not got that degree, then sort of understanding, why they've not got that and what experience they do have in the field. So yeah, it's quite key, Sanj.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but the gist of it is maybe if you do have the relevant qualifications for this industry, this is an awesome industry to get into if you're looking for a role right now?
Yeah, definitely. Great industry to get into. Lots of opportunity. There's loads of great places you could work with. I'm trying to think. We've probably got sort of eight clients at the minute that are recruiting. All exciting sort of clinical trials and various stuff going on. So yeah, and I recommend it.
And is it quite competitive from the candidate point of view?
Yeah, no, it definitely is competitive. It definitely is competitive. Yeah, and also trying to find the skill sets as well, matching the skill sets up for the candidates for the roles. The clients are obviously after certain stuff, which not, use an example, like a data manager might have some great skills, but for some clients, they might not have the exact requirements. So it's just sort of niching that down and finding the right matches. So yeah, it's definitely a lot of opportunity for people in the industry.
Now, I know you deal with AI recruitment as well to a
Yeah.
certain extent.
Yes.
That,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's a huge booming area right now.
I think certainly before COVID struck, we're pretty booming with AI clients, with sort of sales roles, some data science roles as well. If I'm being completely honest, we've probably not done so much of that in the last 12 months. Before that, that certainly was quite a big area for us, and booming area. I think the only struggles with that was trying to get people that actually had AI experience and sort of selling AI or working for AI companies was quite hard. So you'd have to go to sort of software guys or people with sort of IT experience instead. But yeah, no, that was an interesting area, and that's hopefully an area that will really grow as well, sort of moving forward as we get past this sort of pandemic.
If you're enjoying this podcast, make sure to check out Electronic Specifier Insights. Their editors dig into the electronics industry, how new tech is shaping our post-COVID world, reviews from all the top electronics shows, and the latest tech electronic companies are releasing. You can find them by searching for Electronic Specifier Insights on any streaming service or by going to electronicspecifier.com/news/podcast. Having covered a little bit of life sciences, I'd like to move on to working with recruiters. So
Yep.
I've just got a bunch of questions for you that are going to help sort of paint the picture, I guess, fill in the gaps for some people.
Yeah, sure. Bring it
So
on.
like we said, okay, awesome. I love your enthusiasm and your attitude. So for many people in our industry, recruiter is a bad word, right?
Yep.
Many people have horror stories. Many people will have heard from their coworkers who have had bad experiences. Stay away from recruiters. Don't deal with recruiters. They do this. They do that. Personally, I've dealt with recruiters happily many a time. Some are bad. Some are good. You're one of the good ones. We'll
Cheers,
get
Sanj.
into. No worries. You can send the check in the post. We'll touch on that again later. But help me just sort of fill in the scene here. Like what happens behind the scene with a job posting? So a company comes to you and say, we need X.
Yeah.
Then help bring me up to speed. What kind of things happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think ideally for me, if we can have a call with a hiring manager, understand exactly what they want, just try and obviously they'll give you a job description. A lot of the time, the job description might be a bit outdated. So just trying to understand from them, what's the 5 most important parts of the role, Sand? What are you looking for? And then I can really sort of home in and go after those and ask questions around that to make sure I'm getting the right candidate. And then logistics play a big part. What's the notice period? Generally, it's like 3 months, especially life sciences, location, salaries. You've got to make sure, obviously, salaries are right for people. But yeah, I think certainly having that call with the hiring manager, understanding about the company, understanding about the role, and then being able to use that to your advantage and sell that back to the candidate is certainly the way I love to start recruitment, and that really get it engaged rather than maybe when I first started in recruitment, you just get given like the job description and you're going at it and you don't quite have that awareness, and it's a lot harder to sell. So initially have that sort of cool idea with the client. A lot of the time it's an existing client. They trust you to know you can fill the role, so they come back to you. Might be a new client as well, so that's even more exciting, fresh sort of challenge for you, which is great. So then you get the job. You post it on things like LinkedIn, put your hashtags on there, try and make it sound a little bit more exciting. I don't know how you do that. Jazz your words up. My boss, Gail's great at doing that. So maybe ask for some advice from her to do that. So yeah, get your job out there to market, advertise it as much as you can. And if you get a good advert out there, hopefully you can get some good candidates applying for it. So you don't have to do this too much headhunting yourself. And then it's a case of looking at your areas to get candidates from. So like in the life sciences now, because I've been in it a few years, there's people in my network which I can go to sort of straight away. There's obviously LinkedIn that you can use to LinkedIn Recruiter to reach out to people and send messages out that way. The more personalised you can make them, the better your response rate certainly is on that. And then, we've got a pretty good database of candidates as well. So certainly doing searches on that. And there's things like job boards that you can use as well, where active candidates will be on, and you can go and get the CVs. So real range of getting the candidates, getting a shortlist there, and sending them a message, picking up the phone, speaking to them, understanding it's the right role for them. And a lot of the time, you can speak to a candidate about one role, but you might have a couple more you can talk to them about. So if you can get a candidate for 3 different roles, for example, then you're really hedging your bets, and there's every chance you're going to place one of those and get the fee, which is obviously a big part of recruitment, making sure you do your placements. And then, I guess when you get the candidates, making sure that their CV is presentable, sending that over to the hiring manager, and trying to book an interview, really. And as well, what we try and do is really coach them through the interview process and try and help them out that way. There's always a lot of presentations generally to do. I think the client's quite keen to test commitment levels from the candidate. So presentation or technical tests are very common. So whatever information I can get from previous candidates and sort of relay that to the candidates they're interviewing, I think that certainly helps. And then obviously from there you try and do the placement. If you can convince the client to do 2 placements and get 2 candidates in, even better. It's pretty much done from there. And then also it's good, even when they start work, to sort of check in, make sure they're okay. Just have a bit of a call, because if there are any problems, you can sort of relay that maybe slightly on a catch-up call with the client. So it's good to keep in contact with guys that have got roles. Obviously, like yourself, Sanj, me and you catch up, and there's just no harm in it. And like from a networking point of view, actually, I spoke to a candidate yesterday that I placed and gave me a really hot lead just from having a chat. And I wasn't actually fishing for the lead, but obviously I've got to ask the question as a recruiter. And I was like, I could have spent yesterday hammering LinkedIn, and then I got some really good leads just from a 5-minute conversation just to check that he's happy in his new role. So it's a funny old game.
I guess we form connections with people, and when we trust someone, we're willing to sort of share quite a lot of information, aren't we?
No, there's a lot to be said for that. Maybe the candidate that I placed, he did want quite a few things from the contract, and he had great reasons for that. So maybe we obviously helped as an agency to provide that, and then from that, he's got a lot of respect for us. Picking up a call on a Monday from a recruiter, Monday morning, some people might ignore that call. I understand that. So he picked it up, gave me a hot lead. I'm speaking to the candidate today. So it's good.
I'm sure no one would ignore a call from you, Henry.
So I'll keep calling, Sanj.
Okay, please do. So look, before we move on to a lot of the positive stuff, I want to touch on shady practices. So I want to preface this section by saying, I want to tell a little story, the very short version of the story between us. So I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago, something like that, you reached out to me, or I reached out to you, I can't remember, and it was for a role that never materialized. It just didn't happen. I wasn't right at that time. And then fast forward about a year or two, I just kind of like, on a hunch, I just kind of really good feeling about you, and I always kept you in the back of my mind, because I was like, okay, there's no red flags here. He's trying to do the right thing. And long story short, I sent you a CV. You didn't have a role for me, but you had a friend who was looking for someone like me. You had no benefit, nothing to gain at all, but you sent my CV on, and I got the job right away, and it was a brilliant job, and I really loved it. And like I say, you had nothing to gain at all. You just kind of did me a favor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think being completely honest, Sanj, that was the edge I was trying to use, and that's the way recruitment goes. Sometimes I was trying to send a couple of candidates who were in my network, so I already had you guys, and that's another good React developer, and sort of see as that was a way of getting into the client, and it didn't quite materialize. But I'd much rather be proactive and try and do stuff like that, and than get a new client. And it didn't come off, but you still got the job, and you really enjoyed it. So it's not the end of the world.
No, absolutely. And we stayed in touch, and
Yeah,
the world's a
absolutely.
small place, right?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Um,
We've got a good relationship now, and you sent me a
yeah.
bottle of whiskey as well, which very grateful for. So thank you for
No worries.
that.
Um, but so having said that, I'm not accusing you of any shady practices or anyone you're affiliated with, but I'd like you to help help me inform the viewer and the listener.
Yeah, no. I certainly think I see both sides of it. To be honest, Ange, recruitment is a very stressful industry. You've got targets. If you don't meet your targets, you will lose your job. It's as simple as that. Sales. So
Mm.
candidates do need to understand that. But at the same time, I'm certain there is not the best practice going on at times in recruitment. But there's little stuff you can do, just making sure that people had interviews and they've not got the role, that you pick the phone up, always pick the phone up, you speak to them and try and give them that feedback. They might not take it the best, it's like when you get negative feedback, but I just feel it's important to give them that feedback to the next role they go for. They've got a better
Mm.
chance. But yeah, maybe I've seen a little bit lazy recruitment in the past. That's where it's easy to get hold of sort of CVs and the CVs on job boards, and there's lots of CVs floating around there. Maybe people aren't doing the best practices and speaking to the candidates and going through the flow, explaining what the roles are. They're just being lazy, and they'll just fire all these CVs off, just bombing them in. And they don't know whether these guys need sponsorship or just loads of stuff, because they've not done the screening, they've not done the job, but they're just trying to, bomb these CVs in, make some money, quick money as quick as they can. But it's just, rather than just taking the 15 minutes to have a conversation with them, understand exactly what's going on, and then selling into the client. Yeah, in the long run, that's the way to do it. But yeah, there definitely are some bad practices there. But it's just don't be lazy is my
Yeah,
advice to recruiters.
absolutely. And I think we can all sympathize with the kind of what fuels that. I mean, the competitive and cynical nature of the industry. So
Yeah,
it's somewhat understandable, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I certainly would agree with that. It's the bottom line is it's about making your target and making that fee and money, and you
Mm-hmm.
know yeah, there is that pressure, but it's still really important to do the best practice and look after people, and in the long run, that will put you in better stead for doing so. So just like I say, people have applied for roles, whatever. Just try and say that the role's closed, even if it's an email, and to why. Just letting them know if they if they failed at an interview, just let them know why. And yeah, a lot of the time,
Mm.
it just takes a quick call, and if you've been told you're not got a job, and I've given them the sort of 3 or 4 reasons from the hiring manager, it's generally might only be a 2-3 minute call, so just do it.
There's a few things which I kind of know a recruiter shouldn't be asking me for. I wonder if you can give me your opinion on these, or you
Yeah,
can
go
even
for
tell
it.
me
Yeah,
some
yeah.
more. So I know sometimes the recruiters will be very persistent about asking about salary, or trying to get contacts out of you, or
Yeah.
even just farming your CV, like you said, for jobs that don't exist.
I think with salary, Sanj, to be honest with you, I'm quite direct with salary, just because I don't know what you're earning, and even if it's just, look, this is the budget. Like, what are you on? Because if you're on 50 grand a year, for example, and the role's only paying 35k, well, it might not be the best thing to have a half an hour conversation with you. Sometimes you do just need to have that. And I think it's important. Money's not everything, but it is important. So having that sort of awareness and understanding, I think, can save a bit of time.
I've got a counter, not a counter, a friendly counter, let's say.
No, go
So
for it.
so when I'm asked for my salary, I'll always just come back with what I'm expecting. So I'll say, so instead of saying I'm on 35K, I'll say, well, I think I'm kind of expecting around 45 for my next role. I
Yeah.
mean, is that fair?
Yeah, like I say, it's a candidate driven market, but yeah, me personally, I don't know if I get in trouble for my manager, but I don't think people will take a new role unless it's a minimum 10% pay rise. I just don't think it
Mm,
happens.
mm.
As much as you want to go for that role, I generally feel like most of the time it's got to be a minimum 10% pay rise for people to move.
Moving on to what you can get out of a good recruiter. You already touched on some of those there, like the feedback, the communication, and, the helpfulness throughout the whole process. Um, what else can you get out of a good relationship between a candidate and yourself as a recruiter?
Yeah, no, good question. I just think as an example, sometimes you put candidates forward and they might not get the role, and they're obviously a bit disheartened and disappointed. But then, I've had examples where 2 months later we do get them the role, and that's even more rewarding because they might have failed a couple of times at a tech test or whatever it is. So I just think, yeah, having that relationship, and if you've got a good recruiter you can trust, or a couple of good recruiters you can trust, then eventually, you'll get some success, and that's because you've built sort of a bit of a relationship together, and you speak a lot on the phone, and yeah, I think because recruiters ultimately they are trying to make placements, and they have got that market awareness. So yeah, it doesn't take long to have a quick phone call, see what's out there, connect on
Mm.
LinkedIn. It's a couple of minutes of activity and something you can get a lot out of.
You must reach out to a lot of people.
Yeah,
I'm assuming not all of them come back to you. I mean,
no. Yeah, no. So we
do
have a LinkedIn acceptance rate, and yeah, my manager's always trying to get me to improve it. I think it's about 20% at the minute, which I've seen worse. I don't think it's the best. I'm always trying to get it up there. But if guys aren't looking for roles and not active in the market, and a lot of people are happy, then why would you take messages from recruiters? And I understand that, but you got to try. You got to be
Mm.
proactive and get those messages out there, or you're not going to fill the roles.
No, absolutely. And sometimes it also helps to break the inertia of the candidate, right? Because people can be complacent and kind of happy when they could be doing much better, right?
That's a great question, Sanj. Like you so often, people are in the comfort zone in the current role, and just have a conversation with a recruiter. Like it might take 10 minutes to have that conversation, but you can understand what roles you've got, whether they'd be of interest, and almost like sometimes just take a risk and go for the role. So often I've had people that like actually sort of persuaded them how to be persistent and keep messaging them, and eventually like, oh, actually, yeah, I'm going to go for this role, and they just like love the sound of the roles, especially a lot of the companies that I work with being smaller. It's more chance to get more hands-on, more exposure, more learning opportunities, and let's go back to the fundamental. And then they end up getting like a 15 or 20% pay rise, and like, oh, Henry, you're a star. Like, I've got this dream job and more money, so it's just have a call. It doesn't take long. Have a call with a recruiter. You don't have to take that role, but it's just sometimes just have a go. You don't know what's going to happen.
Next question for you.
Yeah.
Recruiters like to say they're always going to try and get the best deal for you. They'll always say, "Look, Sanj, I'm going to get as much as I can possibly get, from the client." Is that true?
You've got to be careful there. So it's quite an old school method of recruitment. That so a lot of guys will work on percentage models. So I don't know if I placed you at 100K, for example, and it's a 20% model. They're obviously always trying to bring the salary up because they can get a bigger fee. And I guess it's a good thing to say for the candidates, but it's not a great client experience because you're just you're bumping up fees, you're bumping up salaries, and they might not necessarily be worth that. So uh, a way we actually offer pretty good service to our clients. We'll do like a fixed fee model. So we'll say, look, we'll just fix the fee at that, whatever the salary is, and then you sort of know that the recruiter's not bumping the salary up just to increase his fee.
We've talked a lot about good recruiters or the things to look out for when trying to engage with a recruiter.
Yeah.
you've worked with a lot of candidates. You've got a fair bit of experience here.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
question is, how do you find the right recruiter?
My advice would speak to a few different recruiters because, especially like in the field that I work with, because I work with a lot of the roles exclusively. I've got potentially some good options for a candidate. Another recruiter for another company might have some good options for another client. So I pick a few and have a conversation with a few recruiters, and and if there are lazy recruiters that don't want to speak to them or not picking up the phone, then maybe move away from those ones and focus on the ones. But if someone sends me a phone number and says they're available to have a chat, I've got my phone. I'm calling them. It's the first thing you do. Just get on the phone and have a conversation because I know stuff will come off the back of it. So yeah.
You're caught in this very difficult position, aren't you, between client and candidate? It must be I guess you've got to really love what you do.
Yeah, you do. I certainly do. I've been doing it sort of 4 or 5 years now. And, I was a little bit unsure what I wanted to do for a career. And people have always said to me, go into recruiter. But like what you say, recruiters don't have the best reps. So I was a bit unsure about going into it. But no, I love it, Sandra. Really enjoy it. And I know actually placing candidates and starting a new role and enjoying it, that's the best feeling. And obviously when you get the commission checks as well, that's a bonus. But it's a nice feeling coaching someone through the process and getting them started.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time and all of your answers. Been very helpful, Henry. Before I let you go, I need the joke of the show.
What kind of car does an egg drive?
What kind of car does an egg drive?
It's a Volkswagen.
A Volkswagen. Brilliant. Cheers, Henry. Thank you very much. You've been wonderful.
No probs. Cheers, Sand.
Okay.
Good
Cheers.
to hear from you.
Take care.
See ya.
And that's all, folks. Thanks a lot for tuning in. For more info, for questions, comments, or feedback, please head on over to aheadintech.com and don't forget to subscribe.